My name is Qley Gutierrez. I'm 31 years old, and for most of the last 2.5 years, I genuinely believed I was building a future with the man I loved. Lucas and I had lived together for the past 14 months in my apartment. The lease was in my name long before he ever moved in. That detail, as I would learn, mattered more than I realized. In the beginning, things were good, simple, soft. He used to bring me coffee in the mornings, wait up for me after long shifts, send texts like, "I miss you already," 5 minutes after I left for work. He made me feel chosen, wanted. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, affection turned into expectation. Expectation into entitlement. And entitlement into something darker, something quiet and sharp-edged that I kept trying to ignore. 8 months ago, Lucas quit his job. No discussion, no warning. One afternoon, he just walked through the door with this bright, reckless smile and said, "Babe, I'm finally doing it. I'm going all in on filmmaking. This is my passion. This is who I'm meant to be." I thought he had a plan, a portfolio, a client, something. He had nothing. No income, no schedule, not even motivation, really. In 8 months, he touched his camera maybe twice. Meanwhile, I covered everything: rent, utilities, groceries, car payments, even his phone bill. The deal was 3 months. Temporary support. But like most temporary disasters, the deadline came and went, swallowed by excuses and defensiveness. Whenever I asked gently if he'd applied for jobs, he'd stiffen and snap. "Why are you pressuring me?" "You don't respect my dreams." Respect. That was the word he loved to weaponize. By the time Tuesday rolled around, things had been tense for months. Not explosive, just a slow erosion of the parts of me that used to feel seen. Traffic was brutal. My workday had been 10 hours of putting out fires, and all I wanted was dinner and silence. Instead, I opened my front door to the sound of tearing tissue paper, and Lucas sitting on the couch, surrounded by glossy shopping bags, the expensive kind. Designer logos everywhere. Some I recognized from ads targeted at women with far more disposable income than I had. He lifted a camera stabilizer, one of those premium influencer tier rigs, and grinned like a kid. "Qley, look. This is going to take my film work to the next level." It was the kind of equipment that cost more than half my rent. My voice was very careful when I asked, "How much was it?" He waved me off. "It was on sale. Relax." "How much?" He rolled his eyes, this slow, dismissive gesture that had become second nature to him. Like $450. But it was originally $700, so technically I saved us money. Us. That word snapped something in me. Not anger, not exactly. Just exhaustion. A kind of bone-deep weariness from carrying a man who refused to lift anything but his own ego. "You spent $450, I said slowly, "when you haven't contributed to rent in 8 months, when you're supposedly broke and job hunting." He scoffed. "I am job hunting, and I contribute in other ways. I clean. I cook. I do all the emotional labor. You ordered delivery 3 times this week on my card. The dishes have been in the sink for 4 days. And emotional labor." "You mean the nightly hour where I listen to you rant about your mother?" His expression shifted from irritation to something sharper, something calculating. He stood moved close enough that I smelled the wine on his breath. "You know what your problem is?" His finger hovered inches from my face. "You're controlling. You're selfish. You don't appreciate everything I've sacrificed for us." I blinked. "Sacrificed, Lucas? You quit your job without telling me." "For us, so I could pursue something real, something meaningful. And who's paying for this meaningful life?" He laughed, cold and humorless. "Look at you, acting like you're so righteous, so smart. You think you have everything figured out." I think I said quietly, "I'm tired." That was when it happened, the shift, the snap. His face rearranged into a mask I had never seen before. "Keep pushing me," he said, voice turning icy, deliberate, controlled. "Keep pushing me, and you'll regret what happens next." A chill swept over my skin. This wasn't anger. This wasn't heat-of-the-moment bluster. This was a threat. "Is that supposed to scare me?" I asked. "It's a promise," he whispered. "You have no idea what I'm capable of. One phone call, Qley. One. And your whole life goes down. Your job, your reputation gone. I have evidence. Of things. Things your company wouldn't be happy to hear." "Evidence of what?" "Try me," he said. "Call my bluff." I looked at him. Really looked at him. The man I'd loved, lived with, fed, supported. And for the first time, I saw the truth. Lucas wasn't losing control. He'd simply stopped hiding who he really was. "Okay," I said softly. His eyebrows knit. "Okay, what?" "I'm calling your bluff. We're done. Pack your things." Shock, rage, calculating malice. His emotions spun like a wheel with no brakes. "You can't make me leave," he snapped. "I live here." "No, you don't. You're not on the lease. You don't get mail here. You told me yourself you kept your parents' address for security. Legally, you're a guest, and your time is up." "You'll regret this," he hissed. "You think you can just walk away? I'll ruin you." I grabbed a bag, laptop, charger, clothes, and headed for the door. He followed, voice cracking between sobs and fury. "You'll beg me to come back. You'll crawl." Maybe I said, but I doubt it. My hand closed around the doorknob. "I think," I added quietly, "you just showed me exactly who you are. And honestly, thank you. You saved me from wasting more time." Then I walked out. My hands were shaking as I drove to my friend's place. Adrenaline buzzed under my skin, but beneath it, something lighter. Something like relief. When my friend opened the door and asked, "Are you okay?" I realized the strange truth. I think I said, exhaling for what felt like the first time in months that I actually am. I stayed at my friend Daria's place for 4 days. She insisted I take the guest room, even though I kept telling her I didn't want to intrude. But she knew before I even said anything that I wasn't safe going home while Lucas was still in the apartment. The first night I turned my phone on, silent. By morning, I had 27 missed calls and 14 voicemails. By the end of the second day, it was over 50. I refused to listen. I didn't want his voice in my head anymore, not until I felt steady enough to face whatever he'd said. On Sunday evening, after giving him more than enough time to pack and leave, I finally drove back to my apartment. The parking lot was quiet. Lucas's car wasn't there. For one brief, sweet second, I believed maybe he'd taken the high road. But when I unlocked the door, my stomach fell through the floor. The air hit me first, a sour mix of wine trash and something rotten. Then the silence. A kind of silence that only exists in places violence has already passed through. I stepped inside and felt the crunch under my shoes. My living room looked like someone had set off an emotional bomb. Couch cushions ripped open, stuffing everywhere. My coffee table flipped, one leg snapped clean off. Every dish in my kitchen smashed and scattered in a mosaic of broken edges. Yogurt pasta sauce, salad dressing, everything from the fridge smeared and splattered across the floor as if he'd thrown them like paint. But the worst part was my TV. A heavy object had been hurled through the screen with enough force to shatter it into a spiderweb of cracks, black edges bleeding toward the center. I still held the doorknob, fingers numb, as if some part of me refused to step fully into the destruction. Then I forced myself forward because I had to document everything. I pulled out my phone, hit record, and narrated with the same calm tone I used at work, the tone I used when I had no choice but to keep it together. This is Sunday, 6:47 p.m. I'm entering my apartment for the first time since Tuesday night. I gave my ex-boyfriend Lucas Reynolds until today to pack and leave. My voice shook on his name. I walked slowly through the living room. As you can see, the couch cushions have been cut open. The coffee table is broken. The television screen is shattered. Each step made the food-covered glass crack louder beneath me. The bedroom made my breath catch. Red wine was everywhere, splashed across the walls, soaked into the carpet, poured in thick, bleeding waves across my bed. Clothes from my closet had been yanked out, flung everywhere, several cuts straight through with scissors. My makeup bag was dumped in the toilet, but the bathroom mirror stopped me cold. Written in red lipstick. My red lipstick were the words, "You did this. Not we, not I, not even Qley." Just a message meant to blame, taunt, confuse. I swallowed hard and kept recording. The primary bedroom has been vandalized extensively. Wine damage, property destruction, defacement. My own voice sounded distant, like someone else was narrating a documentary about a life that wasn't mine. I turned off the camera only when I reached the doorway again. I didn't sit down, couldn't. The whole apartment felt contaminated by him. I called the non-emergency police line with fingers that barely obeyed me. When the officer arrived, an older man, weary in the way people become after seeing too much, he took in the destruction with a quiet exhale. "Ex-boyfriend?" he asked. "Yes." "Break up when?" "Tuesday night. I've been staying with a friend. I haven't been here since." He nodded as he took photos. "He make any threats?" I hesitated. "He said he could ruin my life, that he had evidence. That one phone call would destroy my reputation." "Any of that in writing?" "No, but he left voicemails." His eyebrows lifted. "Voicemails? Yes, some of them. I think you need to hear." I played 3. The calm ones. The chilling ones. The one where he said, "Don't make me do this, Qley. I'll tell people what you did, what you're really like. They'll believe me." The officer paused, the playback, jaw tightening. I'm going to put in my report that you've expressed concern about potential false accusations. That voicemail alone is significant. He looked at my broken TV, the slash closed the mirror. You should consider a protective order. I'm planning on it, I murmured. He gave me the case number, advised me to change my locks immediately, and stepped back out into the hallway. Only when the door closed behind him did my body crumble into motion. I called an emergency locksmith. He quoted me $280 for Sunday night service. I agreed instantly. While waiting, I sat on the bare patch of floor untouched by debris and finally opened my voicemail app. The list was long. I braced myself and hit play. Friday, 8:54 a.m. Crying, frantic. Qley, please. Baby, please talk to me. I didn't mean what I said. I love you. Please don't do this. Friday, 3:13 p.m. Cold, sharp. Oh, so this is how it is. You ignore me after everything I did for you. Real mature, Qley. You're going to pay for this. You hear me? You will. Saturday, 4:18 a.m. Unhinged. I know what you did at that company retreat last year. Don't pretend you don't remember. I have ways of making people see the truth about you. I froze. I didn't do anything. I'd never even seen him at any retreat. Saturday, 10:27 a.m. Manipulative rage. My dad is a lawyer. He says you illegally evicted me. You're going to jail. You think you can just throw me out after everything I gave up for you. And then the one that made my blood run cold. Saturday, 6:41 p.m. Venom dripping from every word I'll tell everyone you hit me. Let's see how your precious job feels about hiring an abusive woman. One phone call, Qley. 1. You think I won't do it? Try me. My breath came shallow and fast. I saved every voicemail, backed them up, emailed copies to myself, texted them to Daria with timestamps. Then I called her. When she picked up, I didn't even say hello. He's going to try to destroy my life, I whispered. There was a pause, then her voice turned firm, anchored solid. Then we're going to make damn sure he fails. The locksmith finished just before 10 p.m., replacing every lock and resetting the garage code. When he left, the apartment finally felt closed off from Lucas, not safe exactly, but sealed. Like the chaos couldn't seep in anymore. At least not physically. But I still couldn't stay there. I grabbed whatever clothes hadn't been slashed or soaked in wine, threw them into a duffel, locked up, and drove straight back to Daria's. She opened the door the moment I parked, as if she'd been standing on the other side, waiting for the sound of my engine. She didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. Wine, she offered quietly. Yes, I said, even though my throat felt too tight to swallow anything. We sat at her dining table, and I finally forced myself to play some of the voicemails. The crying ones, the angry ones, the dangerous ones. By the end, Daria's hands were clenched around her glass knuckles, white eyes burning with protective fury. Qley, she said, you need a lawyer. Immediately. Before he makes good on any of these threats. I know, my voice barely held. He said he'd accuse me of... Don't say it, she cut in gently. Just get legal help. So I did. The next morning, I called into work and met with an attorney named Serena Cho. She was calm, razor sharp, the kind of woman who radiated competence without trying. I handed her everything, photos of the destruction, my video, walked through the police report number, and finally, every voicemail. She listened to the worst one, twice the one where Lucas threatened to tell people I hit him. Then she closed her notebook and looked at me steadily. This isn't vague, she said. He threatened false allegations and then caused thousands of dollars of damage. You have an unusually strong case. Hearing that didn't make everything disappear, but it made breathing easier. Serena drafted the protective order request and a cease and desist letter. She told me what to expect next legally and emotionally, and for the first time in days, I felt like someone was standing between Lucas and me. But Lucas wasn't finished. That afternoon, before the cease and desist was even delivered, my phone rang. From an unknown number. I shouldn't have answered. Serena had already warned me, but some foolish part of me hoped he might be calm. He wasn't. How dare you send me legal papers? Lucas shouted the moment I picked up. You're trying to intimidate me after everything I sacrificed for you. I'm not supposed to talk to you directly, I said flatly. Please communicate through an attorney. I don't have one, he snapped. Because you ruined my life and left me with nothing. You kicked me out like trash. That's not my responsibility anymore, I said quietly. Do not call this number again. I hung up. He called back 8 more times. I let every call go to voicemail. The next day, while I was finally catching up on work emails, I got a text from a coworker, Qley. Lucas's mom is here. She's in the lobby yelling at reception. My whole body went cold. I rushed to my manager's office. He was standing outside, looking strained and uncomfortable. Qley, he said, a woman came in claiming you physically abused her son. She demanded I contact HR and terminate you immediately. My heart pounded. I opened the folder I'd started carrying everywhere, photos, documentation, transcribed, voicemails, the police report, everything. He flipped through the pages. His expression changed from concern to something harder. By the time he finished, he closed the folder and nodded once. Stay here. I heard her voice rising in the lobby, shrill and cracked with anger, insisting that her son was the victim. Security got involved. 10 minutes later, my manager returned. She's been escorted out, he said, and warned that if she returns, the police will be called. HR is aware of the situation. Relief nearly buckled my knees. Thank you, I whispered. I didn't know if anyone would believe me. You've been here 8 years, he said firmly. Your reputation matters. But not everyone would have given you the benefit of the doubt without documentation. You did the right thing keeping records. I left his office shaking. If I hadn't saved those voicemails, if I hadn't taken photos, if I hadn't recorded everything, I could have lost my job. Lucas wasn't trying to reconcile. He was trying to destroy me piece by piece. On Saturday morning, my landlord called next. Hey, Qley, he said hesitantly. I got a strange call from someone claiming to be your ex's father. He said I helped you illegally evict his son and he's considering legal action. Of course he did. He was never on the lease, I said. Never paid rent. All his mail goes to his parents' house. Legally, he was a guest. That's what I figured. The landlord paused. He also said I should inspect the apartment for damages in case you caused them. A humorless laugh escaped me. Lucas destroyed over $3,000 worth of my property. I have the police report. Send it to me, he said quickly. If they contact me again, I'll handle it. So now it wasn't just Lucas, it was his entire family. 2 days later, Serena forwarded me a scanned letter handwritten by Lucas. 3 pages filled with accusations, demands, and emotional manipulation. He wanted $5,000 for emotional support during our relationship. He claimed the vandalism was self-defense. He insisted he had witnesses, and he threatened to press criminal charges unless I dropped my legal actions. It was unhinged. Serena's response was surgical and devastating, citing every voicemail, every piece of evidence, every factual contradiction. She warned him of the consequences of further harassment or false allegations, but he wrote back again, still refusing accountability, still doubling down, still insisting on a reality that never existed. The protective order hearing was set for the following week. 1 week until I'd have to face him again. 1 week until everything he'd done, all of the lies, all the threats, all the destruction would finally be put under the cold, bright light of a courtroom. I wasn't ready. But ready or not, it was happening. The week leading up to the hearing felt like standing on thin ice, every hour a fresh crack beneath my feet. I kept waiting for the next escalation, another phone call, another surprise at work, another attack through someone connected to him. But instead of Lucas, I heard from someone I never expected. It started with a text from an unknown number on Thursday night. Hi, I'm sorry if this is weird. My name is Elise. I used to date Lucas. My stomach tightened. Another message followed. I heard what's happening. I think you should know some things. Every instinct screamed to ignore it, but something about the name Elise tugged at a memory. Lucas had mentioned her once briefly in that dismissive way men talk about women they're trying to erase. Curiosity won. What things I typed. Seconds later, my phone rang. Her voice was cautious, shaken but clear. Qley, I'm not here to cause more problems. I recognize the pattern. She explained that 2 years before Lucas met me, he had done almost the exact same thing to her. The slow manipulation, the financial dependency, the threats when she tried to leave. She too had been told that he had evidence. She too had been threatened with false accusations. She too had been harassed afterward, but she didn't have the documentation I had. I didn't know how bad it had gotten, Elise said quietly. But when I heard from someone that he was saying you ruined his life, I recognized the language. I thought you should know you're not the first. The call lasted 20 minutes, but it felt like an entire chapter of the story snapping into place. When we hung up, I sat frozen on Daria's couch, the weight of everything Lucas had done settling in my bones. He hadn't just lost control. This was a pattern, a script he recycled, a tactic he perfected. And now he was turning it on me. When I told Serena about Elise the next morning, she nodded gravely. It fits with everything we've seen. But unless Elise is willing to testify, and if the judge allows it, because prior acts aren't always admissible, our focus stays on your evidence. I understood. It was frustrating, but I understood. Still knowing I wasn't alone helped. Not because misery loves company, but because it proved I wasn't imagining any of this. The day before the hearing, Lucas sent another handwritten note this time, left in my building's mailbox. Serena said not to open it, so I didn't. She handled it directly and emailed me later. Qley, the letter, is more delusions and some threats masked as self-pity. I've attached a summary. Do not respond. I read the summary. It was pathetic and frightening all at once. Lucas claimed he was traumatized by the breakup, that he had a right to return to my apartment, that he was considering ending everything unless I apologized, that all his actions were the result of emotional distress I caused. Serena included a line in her email. This is classic manipulation. Do not engage. I didn't. I turned off my phone, laid in bed at Daria's, and stared at the ceiling, listening to the faint hum of traffic outside. My mind kept replaying the same moments, the threats, the tantrums, the cold smile he gave me the night I ended it. I thought of how easily he'd switched masks. I thought of the lipstick on my mirror. You did this. I thought of what could have happened if I hadn't left when I did. By midnight, I hadn't slept a minute. By 4 a.m., I stopped trying. Morning arrived. Heavy and gray light filtering through a thin layer of clouds that made everything feel muted. Dressed in the plainest, cleanest clothes I had left, I tied my hair back and met Serena at the courthouse. You ready? She asked. No, I said honestly, but I'm here. That's enough. She placed a hand on my shoulder. You have truth evidence and documentation. He only has emotion and performance. We walked inside. Lucas was already there. Seeing him again hit me harder than I expected. He looked smaller, somehow diminished. But the moment his eyes met mine, they hardened sharp, gleaming with vindictive pride, as if he thought I'd crumble just from seeing him. His mother was at his side, clutching his arm, whispering furiously. His father stood behind them, stiff and silent, pretending authority he didn't have. Lucas didn't approach me legally. He couldn't, but his smirk was enough. Serena leaned toward me and whispered, He's trying to intimidate you. Ignore it. Judges don't care about theatrics. We entered the courtroom. The air felt colder in there, the kind of cold that came from polished floors, fluorescent lights, and the knowledge that a stranger would soon decide whose story carried truth. The judge entered, and everyone rose. My hands trembled slightly as I sat, but Serena placed a legal pad in front of me and whispered, Just breathe. Lucas was asked to speak first. He stood, shoulders slumped, just a bit enough to appear wounded, fragile. And then he began, Your Honor, I've been abandoned. I sacrificed so much for Qley, my career, my stability, my emotional well-being, and she threw me out with no warning. I had nowhere to go. I was devastated. I wasn't thinking clearly. Everything I did was because I was hurting. He wiped at his eyes dramatically. He didn't shed a single tear. The judge listened, expression unreadable. When Lucas finished, the judge asked him a very simple question. Are you addressing the allegations of property damage and recorded threats? Lucas faltered. Well, those were misunderstandings. I was upset. She provoked. Did you destroy property in her apartment? A very long pause. His mother nudged him. Some of it, he muttered. But did you leave voicemails threatening to make false accusations of domestic abuse? I didn't mean I was emotional. The recordings suggest premeditation, the judge said calmly. Not emotion. Lucas's face drained of color. And finally, it was my turn. I stood, hands trembling, but Serena's steady presence beside me kept me upright. I spoke clearly. I described the timeline, the breakup, the threats, the vandalism, the voicemails. And then Serena played them aloud. Lucas's mask cracked. His parents went still. The judge's expression hardened. The hearing wasn't over yet, but for the first time, I felt the tide turning. The recordings echoed through the courtroom like something out of a nightmare, except it wasn't a nightmare. It was my life, my voice trembling, his voice cold and deliberate, the venom dripping from every word. When the last voicemail finished playing, a quiet settled over the room, so heavy it felt almost physical. Lucas couldn't look at me. His mother couldn't look at the judge. His father stared straight ahead, jaw clenched, so hard it twitched. The judge folded his hands. Ms. Gutierrez, thank you. You may be seated. I sat. My knees felt weak, but Serena rested her hand lightly on my forearm, an anchor in the storm. Mr. Reynolds, the judge said. Turning to Lucas, you admitted to property damage and left recorded threats. Do you contest the validity of these recordings? Lucas's voice came out thin. They're taken out of context. The judge raised one eyebrow. The context appears to be you threatening to falsely accuse Ms. Gutierrez of physical abuse because she ended the relationship. Lucas swallowed hard. I wasn't thinking clearly. That is evident, the judge said dryly. It does not excuse the behavior. His mother finally snapped, rising partially from her seat. Your Honor, my son has been through trauma. Ma'am, the judge said sharply, sit down. You may not interrupt these proceedings again. She sank back into her seat, but her glare burned holes into me. The judge turned to Serena. I've reviewed the photos, the sworn statement from the witness, and the police documentation regarding the vandalism, and the voicemails are extremely concerning. Does the petitioner have anything further? No, Your Honor, Serena replied. The evidence speaks for itself. It does, the judge agreed. He looked back at Lucas. For a long moment, he simply studied him like he was trying to decide whether Lucas was oblivious, manipulative, or dangerous. Maybe all three. Mr. Reynolds, he said at last, your behavior following this breakup constitutes harassment, intimidation, threats of false criminal accusations, and property destruction exceeding $3,000. You present a credible ongoing risk to Ms. Gutierrez's safety. Lucas flinched. His mother whispered something fierce and frantic to his father. The judge continued, tone firm and final. I am granting the protective order for 1 year. You are prohibited from contacting Ms. Gutierrez directly or indirectly, including through family or third parties. You must stay 500 feet from her residence and place of employment. Any violation will result in immediate arrest. Lucas's shoulders caved in. His mother gasped a theatrical, outraged, breathy sound. But the judge wasn't done. Additionally, he added, based on the evidence presented, particularly the respondent's own admission of damage and the documented cost exceeding the felony threshold, I am forwarding this case to the district attorney's office for review of potential felony vandalism charges. The room went still. Lucas's face drained of all color. His mouth opened, then closed again. For felony, he stammered. You can't, it was just property. Over $3,000, the judge corrected, and on video. His mother lurched to her feet again, voice cracking with rage. This is unfair. She manipulated the system. She provoked him. My son is the victim here. The bailiff stepped forward. Ma'am, you need to calm down. No, she screeched, pointing at me. She's the abuser. She ruined his life. Ma'am, the judge said sharply, leave the courtroom or you will be removed. Her father pulled her back down by the arm, hissing something under his breath. Her face was splotchy with fury. She looked like she wanted to claw her way across the room. I kept my eyes focused on the table in front of me. Not out of shame, out of discipline. This wasn't the moment to react. When the proceedings formally ended, Serena gathered our documents and whispered, You did well. Let's go. We stepped out into the hallway, but Lucas and his parents were already there. They must have rushed out first, waiting to corner me. His mother lunged forward before the bailiff could catch up. I hope you're happy, she spat. You've destroyed him. Do you understand that he has no job, no home, no money, and now maybe a felony record? You did this to him. I met her eyes calmly. No, he did this to himself. You should have been understanding, she hissed. Women lash out when they're hurt. You should have been patient. Understanding doesn't mean letting someone abuse me, I said, voice steady. If your idea of parenting is teaching your son that women should never face consequences, then maybe that's why we're here. She went silent, stunned. Lucas stared at me like he didn't recognize me, or maybe like he finally saw the version of me he could never control. His father muttered, Karma will come for you before dragging his wife away. When they were gone, Serena exhaled. They'll cool off. People like that burn hot and fast. I'm not afraid of them, I said. It was true. For the first time since the breakup, the fear wasn't the loudest thing inside me. Walking out of the courthouse, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Unshaken. Solid, whole, and maybe free. A month passed after the hearing, though it felt more like a year compressed into 4 long, uneven weeks. Everything slowed down in strange ways. My mornings felt quieter, my evenings felt longer, and for the first time in months, the silence around me didn't feel dangerous. It felt like mine again. 3 weeks after the protective order was granted, I got a call from Serena. Qley, she said the district attorney decided to file charges. Felony vandalism was on the table. But due to your ex's lack of prior convictions, they're offering him a plea deal. My stomach tightened. What kind of deal? Misdemeanor property damage, 18 months probation, mandatory restitution of $1,500. If he violates the protective order during probation, the original felony charge will be reinstated. I let out a slow breath, not relief exactly, but something close. Will he accept it? I asked. He already did, she said. Probation begins next week. It wasn't perfect justice, but it was accountability, and that mattered more than I realized. Later that evening, as I sat on my repaired couch, the new one, not the shredded remains insurance hauled away, I thought about how surreal it all felt. A month ago, Lucas was still calling me nonstop, threatening me, insisting he could ruin me. Now he was legally barred from coming anywhere near me. It didn't erase the fear he caused, but it muted it, softened it around the edges. Rebuilding the apartment took time. Insurance covered some things, but between the deductible legal fees, the locksmith, and all the personal items I had to replace out of pocket, I ended up spending close to $2,800. Not nothing, Daria said one night as she helped me put together a replacement TV stand, but also not everything. She was right. Money can be earned back. Some things can't. While unpacking the last of the replacement dishes, I found myself staring at my reflection in the cabinet glass, tired but steady, not broken, not scared. Just present. My job became an unexpected source of stability, too. My manager pulled me aside after my performance review. I want you to know, he said, I'm incredibly impressed by how you navigated a personal crisis with professionalism and clarity. Most people wouldn't have handled it half as well. Hearing that nearly brought me to tears, not because of the compliment, but because for the first time in months, someone wasn't doubting me, disbelieving me, or trying to rewrite my reality. They saw me, they trusted me, they believed me. I hadn't realized how much I'd missed that feeling. Slowly, I rebuilt my social life too. The friends I'd drifted from during my relationship with Lucas reached out. Some cautiously, others boldly, all with a kind of relieved affection. One night, while sitting around a fire pit in Daria's backyard, my friend Megan said something that stuck with me. You seem lighter, Kel. Not healed, not yet, but unburdened. Like you can breathe again. She wasn't wrong. I was breathing again. But healing wasn't linear. There were moments, sometimes at night, sometimes in crowded places, when my chest tightened, when shadows felt too loud, when a phone notification made my heart race before I reminded myself, he can't reach me. Sometimes I'd replay the manipulation in my head, remembering the early moments I dismissed as quirks, the excuses I made, the way his moods dictated my own. Sometimes I'd get angry at him, at myself, at the world, for letting people like him slip through cracks and find people to latch onto. That's why I started therapy. Not because I was broken, but because being threatened with false accusations, having your home destroyed, and becoming someone's emotional hostage leaves marks you don't always see right away. My therapist told me something during our second session that hit me hard. Abuse doesn't always start with violence. Sometimes it starts with excuses. And the person making the excuses is usually you. It was like she held a mirror up to the past 2 years of my life. I forgave myself for not seeing it sooner. And I learned to understand the difference between normal conflict and emotional corrosion, the kind that eats away at who you are, one tiny compromise at a time. Dating wasn't on my mind. Not for now. Maybe not for a long time. It's okay to wait, my therapist said. It's okay to trust yourself again before trusting anyone else. So I waited. I'm still waiting. And honestly, I'm not in a rush. My life finally feels like my own again. No threats hanging over me. No man using love as leverage. No walking on eggshells in my own home. Just quiet, just peace, just me. A few nights ago, Daria and I sat on the couch eating ice cream straight from the carton when she suddenly asked, "When did you know it was really over?" I didn't even have to think. The moment he said, "Keep pushing me and you'll regret what happens next." That was the moment he told me exactly who he was. Daria nodded, and you listened. I did, I said, finally. That threat, the one he used to try to control me, became the moment I woke up. And every escalation that followed only confirmed what I had refused to admit for months. Lucas didn't want a partner. He wanted a hostage. And the only thing I regret now is not walking away sooner.